We stopped looking at her pictures. It felt like someone turned the lights out. We lived in the dark. We just lived with our grief. To me, breast was a bad word, and I was ashamed to tell people how she died. One day, my teacher called home. She told my dad I should be wearing a bra. I was 9, and I had breasts. Dad had to find a woman to take me shopping. He enlisted his best friend's girlfriend. I wanted to be invisible. The other kids didn't notice at first. When they did, the teasing was relentless. I prayed to God to make my breasts go away. The way I saw it, the boobs of doom had taken my mother. Now they were after me. After 25 years of running away, I'm finally ready to face them. When it comes to being mixed up about breasts, I'm not the only one. I don't know what it is about breasts. They've never been so loved, feared, covered, or uncovered. Breasts are used to sell every kind of product.
Die.
While mothers are sometimes harassed for breastfeeding in public. Even the breasts of statues are controversial. The U.S. Department of Justice spent $8,000 shrouding this statue, so that people like Attorney General John Ashcroft aren't embarrassed addressing the nation beneath the bosom. In America today, there's a lot to hate around breasts. But in so many places around the world, breasts are, well, breasts just are. They are functional, natural, normal, and out there. What I want to know is, why are we so obsessed?
Flash those racks! Flash those racks! Flash those racks! Flash those racks! Flash those racks!
I think my infatuation started when in infancy. Yeah. Can I see your breasts?
We're here in Seattle on a Friday. These people are waiting to get into the listeners' party, a national broadcast of the Tom Leykis Show. Tom's a radio shock jock based out of L.A. Tom's got a loyal following. He advises lovelorn and frustrated men on how to get sex without paying for dates. His claim to fame is a weekly promotion called Flash Friday.
We are #1 in men. The ratings are good to us, but it's kind of fun to see a graphic representation of how many listeners we have. So we ask you to turn the headlights on so everybody around you can see that you're a listener. And so you can see who the other listeners are. As your incentive, we ask the women listening to show their breasts to you. Yeah, show your rack, ladies. Thrust them out the window, press them up against the glass, pop out the sunroof, hang them off the side of the El Camino. You know what I'm talking about.
Never been flashed on Flash Friday, and I keep waiting and waiting and waiting, but it never happens.
Tom Leykis.
1-800-5800-TOM.
Tom Leykis.
1-800-5800-866.
I got 3 chicks in front of me in a Toyota Corolla, flashing their breasts.
Tell me about those racks.
They're nice.
I love that. I love that. Tom, name another radio show that gives you bare breasts in the afternoon.
Absolutely not.
It's Flash Friday on the Tom Leykis Show.
I think that to a certain extent in this society, women feel sexually repressed. Do you have nice responsive nipples?
Yes, absolutely.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. And you are ready to show these to the guys on the 405 northbound coming from the airport.
That's right.
I don't think you could do Flash Friday in, say, Canada, where frontal nudity is okay on TV, or Denmark, or other countries that aren't as repressed as we are. Probably think it was absurd.
Let's just get it out of our system right now. 3, 2, 1. All right, well, we can say boobs, we can say bazoomas, we can say nice rack, we can say meat puppets, we can say milk jug. What is the one word you cannot say when we're on national radio? 3, 2, 1.
You know, it's amazing how we have no problem with women objectifying a man's ability to earn a living. But when we objectify body part, I mean, this is a quid pro quo. The man who makes the most money gets to pick the woman with the best body parts. That's how it works.
The Tom Leykis Show.
I had a breast reduction surgery about 2.5 months ago. I didn't want to go through all this pain just to go up one size to a B and just have it not be that much of a difference. There are stereotypes that come along with having big breasts, and I don't know why that is, but even in high school, you get a reputation of being easy because you have big breasts. I'm happy with the ones that I have. they're just not big enough.
Girls will say just the rudest things, and guys will gawk and make comments.
All the things girls go through in gym class and, locker rooms. Boys are mean. Boys are just mean.
Back in the 70s, one time I went outside without a bra on because it was the big no bra movement, and a neighbor boy yelled out his window to go back inside and put my bra back on.
It kept me from doing a lot of things with my friends in the summertime, going to the beach.
I love going to the beach, but, it wasn't something I felt comfortable with. I think I felt like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be out here like this. This is not appropriate. This is not culturally acceptable for a big-breasted woman to be bouncing around like this.
If the norm was to be small, then I would fit right in. I'd be perfect then.
They were never small. They just instantly were large.
To me, a normal breast is one that looks like a breast and is shaped like, a breast and just perky. It's the last thing on their mind, but it's always the first thing on your mind. It's gonna be nice to not have those things holding me back from doing things that are really fun. I want them big enough for now, but I want you to leave a little bit of room, so if later I need to have them replaced, they can, take up the slack.
When I decided to do the surgery the first time, I was maybe 3 minutes away from being wheeled away, and I said, forget it. I got up and left.
I've been looking down when we were just in the office right now. They didn't really seem real. Yeah, those are weird. They're high. Just your look. Yeah. And you've got cleavage. Do you want to see yourself in the mirror? That's okay. Here we go. Just hurry up.
I mean, how do you tell somebody, oh, I've had a breast reduction and my scarring is bad and I don't have normal looking breasts? With the new surgery, actually, she's going to take out a lot of the scar tissue, so I would be a B, and she's going to put in a very small implant, and then I'll be a full C, and I'm very happy with that. My sister used to go to bed and wear a bra every night to try to keep them from growing. When she was younger, it didn't work.
You see magazine ads and you look through Victoria's Secret and all the women in there have these, beautiful breasts, and they all, that's the image that they portray. That's how the size you should be. That you can't be small and have a little A cup and be beautiful, but you have to have these nice large breasts in order to be beautiful and be a woman. At first, I wanted to think these women were different from me, but they're not. I've slouched to hide my size most of my life. I felt sad watching the surgery. I felt protective because one of the women reminded me of my sister. And I felt queasy. Letting a knife near that part of your body if your life is in danger, well, that just seems crazy. And yet, I understand it. Everyone wants to feel accepted. And sometimes, there's no price too high. Altering the body to meet the ideal of the day isn't a new concept. This is Dr. Kathy Detweiler, a biological anthropologist.
There was a time in Chinese history where the upper class, upper status women would bind their feet so that they would be very tiny. And tiny feet on a woman were considered an aphrodisiac for men and considered sexy and feminine. And they would take a little girl when she was about the age of 4 and bind her toes underneath so that only the big toes stuck out and the other toes were folded under, and then the heel was folded under and then wrapped, so that you ended up with, if you were lucky, the best kind was called a golden lotus, and it was a foot that was only 3 inches long. And mothers did it for their daughters because they wanted their daughters to be beautiful and sexy and to be able to attract a higher class of husband than they could. And if you read Chinese pornography about golden lotuses, it sounds just like American pornography about breasts. But instead of big breasts, it was tiny feet. The men thought it was just natural that tiny feet were sexy. They thought it was, just this huge turn on.
For nearly all of our history, life depended on breasts. Without human breast milk, babies usually died. If I'd been alive 25,000 years ago, I might have had an idol like this in my hut, and we all would have been praying for a healthy flow of milk.
If you read parts of the Old Testament, parts of the Hebrew Bible, and you find the ancient Hebrews coming into these civilizations where they find these images of women with very prominent breasts, sometimes with their hands under their breasts and offering their breasts. The ancient Hebrews are dead set against these images and determined to destroy them.
This goddess bashing cleared the way for Westerners to cast their souls with a single, all-knowing, and undeniably male god. From this time on, the view of breasts changes.
In the Middle Ages, The small breast was fashionable. Breasts the size of cherries or small apples at most. That was because women often married at 13, and it was the youthful, nubile body that represented the ideal breast.
Late medieval fashions emphasized this forbidden fruit. Later, some Christian moralists called the laced openings of women's bodices the gates of hell.
Then you get these images of the nursing Madonna, which begin to appear in the 14th century. And suddenly it is the nursing breast, the nurturing breast, that offers a different vision of the female.
But this vision didn't inspire all Christian women. During the Renaissance, it became popular for rich mothers to pay poor women to nurse their babies.
Women wanted to preserve their breasts from the so-called ravages of breastfeeding. They wanted to please their husbands. The husbands often felt that breastfeeding was disadvantageous to them because the baby got the breast, and they wanted the breast as an erotic object.
In the next centuries, the eroticized breast continued to gain momentum, while breastfeeding went in and out of fashion. With the invention of formula during the late 1800s, breasts were no longer a required part of mothering.
It was the dairy producers and the formula manufacturers aggressively looking for markets and trying to generate markets and trying to play on women's fears of inadequacy and the sense that breastfeeding is a bother and is not trustworthy.
Throughout the 20th century, emphasis on breasts changed with the politics of the day. When feminism gained strides, flat chests were in. Other times, they were out. These rocket-cut bras of the 40s made women look ready for war and for love. The reality? Many women went to work while lonely American soldiers turned to the fantasy of the pinup girl.
My clothes are dirty. They're not much. I must admit. But I
She was a reminder of what they were fighting for and what they hoped to come home to. For many women, it was a lot to live up to.
if it will bring you happiness.
An overemphasis on breasts and a breast size that is unreal for most women. That usually is a period, as in the 1950s and the 1980s, when women are being told you should be going back to home and nurturance. Whenever there is a backlash against women who have become, if you will, too uppity or too prominent in public life, the focus on the breast is part of that. It's a way of saying, you have breasts, you are different from men.
Just as American men, a lot of them are very resistant to the idea that breasts are not inherently sexual. That's something that our culture teaches. We deliberately teach both girls and boys to think of breasts as sex objects, to think of them as sexual turn-ons.
Different cultures have had different fetishes. In Japan, the nape of the neck. In Africa, the buttocks. In the Near East, the belly.
And women will say, but I get sexual pleasure from my breasts. And it's like, oh, of course you do. Nobody's denying that. But if in our culture it was elbows, then you would have learned to get sexual pleasure from your elbows.
In 1951, a major report was published on the study of sexuality in non-Western cultures. Researchers looked at attitudes in 190 cultural subgroups, ranging from Africa to the South Pacific and beyond. Breasts were found to be sexually significant in only 13 of those cultures.
Sometimes the men in the culture liked small breasts, and sometimes they liked large breasts. So there wasn't really any uniformity about what it was about breasts, but only 13 out of 190 where they played any role in sexual attraction whatsoever. And then they also looked at what role breasts played in sexual activity. And again, 13 out of 190 where the men touched or fondled the women's breasts as part of sexual activity, and in the rest, the women's breasts are never touched at all. People are saying, but this can't be cultural. You know, I can't help this. Of course, all men everywhere like women's breasts. It's like, absolutely not. In most of the world, women's breasts are not sex objects at all. Men don't understand why men in other cultures think that breasts are sexy. You know, in Mali, it's all women's thighs. That's the hot part. And you don't dare wear a short skirt or shorts because you'll get whistled at and propositioned and made fun of and stuff like you would if you walked around topless in the U.S.
I wanted to hear from the people themselves. We didn't have the budget to go to West Africa, so we did what we could. We went for Senegalese food.
Everybody smile at the camera. Everybody smile at the camera.
You can see women running without nothing and stuff, no bra. And it's not nothing sexual. Like men who even live around, they won't look at women, you know, just like fixing her breast. It's like a way of living. They are free.
But here, if somebody's walking the street right now with a bear or whatever, somebody will call 911 for you. Why? Love of human being comes from the breastfeeding, from the mom. And because women are so important in our culture and so respected that we believe that
They're the one who form and build and raise good citizens. And there is no more greater job than that.
In our culture, we say, when you breastfeed your baby, he's gonna love you, whatever, he's gonna love you.
People tell me they feel threatened by the idea that we aren't wired as a species to be hot for breasts. But so what if breasts aren't universal pleasure pillows? We all grew up in this culture to see breasts as sexy, and I don't see anything wrong with that, except when it interferes with our health. Other cultures do manage to find some middle ground between the erotic and the nurturing breast.
Some of the Scandinavian countries, everybody breastfeeds, and people breastfeed in public, and nobody looks twice at them, and yet they still view the breasts as being sexy and attractive, and they still fondle the breast during sexual activity.
There's a definite downside to eroticizing the breast to the extent that we do, because then its primary function is not only obscured, but downgraded.
There was an instance here in Seattle where a mom was sitting at the edge of a pool and she was breastfeeding her son. And she was asked to leave on the grounds that her breast milk might leak into the pool and contaminate the pool water. Try not to laugh. It was a very big concern, but obviously there was probably in a pool full of toddlers. I was not really worried about the breast milk.
We're mammals. Like more than 4,000 other kinds of hairy, backboned, warm-blooded creatures, we're designed to feed our young from mammary glands. Even the word mammal comes from the Latin word for breast. And yet, some people find breastfeeding offensive. Enough nursing mothers have been harassed that many states have seen the need to pass laws protecting women's rights to breastfeed.
On average, it's now just over 60% of women initiate breastfeeding, meaning that once ever the baby was put to the breast. And that rapidly falls off.
A lot of people are very defensive, and they'll say, well, my child is 3 and she was formula fed and she's fine. And I'm like, well, yes, but some of the diseases that formula increases the risk of are things that don't happen until you're middle-aged. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, multiple sclerosis. Come back when she's 16. Tell me if she turned out okay. Tell me if she didn't develop allergies and asthma. And people don't want to talk about it that way. They want to talk about breastfeeding is warm and fuzzy and good, instead of breastfeeding is normal, and the health of a breastfed baby is normal.
Breast milk has nutrients and antibodies you can't get anywhere else. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.5 million children die every year due to a lack of breastfeeding. They recommend 6 months of exclusive nursing, followed by the addition of other foods with breast milk, until the child is at least 2.
This attitude that because we live in a country that has immunizations and antibiotics and clean water, that we don't need to nurse for very long for our health, that we can get away with not nursing the babies at all, which of course isn't the case. They do get sick more, they do die more, even in the U.S.
Are you getting ready to suck yet? Oh, he says, yeah, I can go for that. Well, he says, give me that baby.
Studies show breastfeeding reduces a woman's risk for breast and reproductive cancers. And it promotes that googly-eyed look mothers give their babies. That's the oxytocin working. Known as the hormone of love, it's the same hormone that is released during orgasm, making mothers and lovers feel bonded.
These lads on great. This is a nursing baby.
The youngest competitors in any event in any county fair compete in the big diaper derby for little folk. The parents urge them on, and finally, at last, there is a winner.
We have 2 generations now of women that have not breastfed. And the women today who want to breastfeed have to be pretty educated and have to be pretty motivated. There's definitely a class distinction about who breastfeeds and who doesn't breastfeed. You will find that your middle income and upper income women breastfeed and the low-income women don't.
Today, formula manufacturing is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
A lot of women go in the hospital thinking that they're going to be breastfeeding and leave the hospital not breastfeeding because nobody supported them and nobody helped them. Almost all hospitals give out free formula, and the companies get the names of pregnant women, and then they'll send you formula before the baby's born, and after the baby's born, a whole case of it right to your door. If you ask the hospital, they will tell you that they get a lot of money to hand out their brand of formula. In exchange, the hospital gets money for building, money for education, continuing education programs for the nurses.
We often joke among ourselves that if somebody was making money off breastfeeding, everybody would be breastfeeding. The things that we learn from each other are just incredible. Right. Just sitting in a room and watching a woman offer her breast to her baby. And the first time you're just kind of like, oh, what is that? What is she doing? And it's really kind of offsetting. But pretty soon that modeling makes you more comfortable to touch your breast, to put your baby to your breast. Well, my dad has made a lot of progress. When my first child was born and he needed to nurse the baby, he would go stand in the kitchen and I would sit in the living room and we would have a conversation around the dividing wall. And then when the second child was born, he would stand in the doorway of the living room, and we'd have a conversation from one end of the room to the other. And now, we can be in the same room, and we could even sit, next to each other on the couch.
I'm not a mother. My biological clock has never ticked very loudly. But maybe I've just been afraid to hope for more. It's a lot easier to say motherhood is something I never wanted anyway, than to risk loving another person that much, and having to leave her behind. But seeing all these happy moms and babies, it made me think, could I do that? Would I want to? Certainly when I was little, the answer was yes. But then I developed early, and I discovered my new breasts weren't associated with mommyhood at all. But things I didn't even understand yet. I started to look womanly, but I didn't have much of a clue about what being a woman really meant. I guess I'm not alone.
The early teens are years of upheaval and turmoil. They're years of physical
You go into girl stores.
New and wider.
All the shirts are tight, so they're like see-through, or they have like holes in it. I know I started hanging out with a lot older people when I developed. All my friends were about 12 years older than me. And I made poor decisions, but I was, I didn't have everything to do with my breasts, but just the fact that I was embarrassed of the stuff that was going on in my body. I didn't understand it, and I tried to make it the best any way that I could.
And when those breasts first start to come out, it's almost like, the sort of clear resonance of a bell goes off. Mom goes into a tizzy because she's, right there back to when all this happened to her. And half of her is intent on saving her daughter from, my God, it was horrible, and don't da-da-da-da. There's another part that's jealousy. Then you're wishing you were that. Even when you were that, it was horrible, but I wish I had the body, but now and all this stuff gets mixed up.
And no one really talked, I don't know if Mom's talked to you, but she never talked to me about getting your period and what you do and going and buying your first bra. So it's like, you got it and you were embarrassed of it.
What? Already? Oh, what Alice, I thought... Well, I mean, after all, she's only...
Daddy, don't be so silly. I'm not a baby anymore.
I know, dear, but,
From the father's perspective, it is very, very difficult for fathers to stay deeply engaged in their daughters' lives through this period. And not because he doesn't love her, but he gets scared. He gets confused. He doesn't know how to deal with it. First of all, you've got a little girl blossoming into a woman. So all of the connotations of the sexuality that is emerging are right there in front of your face. And yet, part of her is still a little girl. Your little girl who used to jump on you and hop on you and you would always hug and everything else. And now you're totally conflicted. Oh my God, how do I deal with this? It's almost like, Madison Avenue couldn't have figured it better. Dad suddenly pulls the rug out from under. Well, now she's susceptible to all these advertisements that say, boy, there is something wrong with you, but if you have our product, you'll be fine. It's a tragedy. It really is.
It's hard. It's hard growing up. Yeah, getting boobies.
When I was a teenager, my dad would actually stand out in front of our house and chop wood when my dates came to pick me up. I see now that my budding sexuality scared my dad. It's a funny thing about puberty. It's unavoidable, and yet everyone acts surprised when it happens. Michelle was about to take her daughter shopping, something I wish I could have done with my mom.
How old were you when you got your first bra? I was thinking about that earlier, and I think I was probably your age. I think I was probably 11 or 12, and back then they called them training bras. And I don't know what you were in training for. Because when you're developing and you're getting your breasts, you're getting them. There's no training to get them. You just get them. So do you think the reason it's embarrassing now for you then is just because it's new and nobody's used to it yet? Yeah. You feel nervous? A little. I'll keep the medium for the other one. I think it's exciting. It's exciting from a mom's perspective to see these girls growing up and to see the changes. It brings back a lot of memories of my own changing, and I love being a woman and being a mother. Find a lady who can help measure so that we can see if we're on the right track with the measuring part, okay? Can we come in? Well, I guess it is sort of a milestone for me because when I'm older, when I'm like my mom's age, I'll probably think back and say, when my kids are probably in my stage right now, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember when I went through that, and I'd probably help them a lot because they'd be probably just as embarrassed as I was this morning to go bra shopping for my first bra. I have one for you. Just go ahead and throw it over the top, okay? Mom? Yeah? Very funny. You don't think that one will work? Very funny, Mom. And so I remember being in the locker room and looking at other girls' breasts and how they were developing and comparing myself to them and feeling really sad that I didn't look like babes yet. Things do round out. But at the very beginning, it isn't like that at all. It's hokey and hard and sisters, and so he understands a lot about it, so that's pretty good. He's undone a few bras in his day. So you think you're gonna start wearing those like starting tomorrow? Maybe. Better get used to them. It'll be a long time. The rest of my life, so it's a big change.
I wanted to talk to some people who are generations away from first bras. I thought that over time, breasts surely would lose some of their power.
We're looking at breast attitudes in the culture. Why do you think about breast attitudes and how those attitudes affect your health?
It was harder than I expected. Most people were reluctant to talk.
Yeah, you just embarrassed me.
I'm sorry.
62 years old, me embarrassed. No,
I'm so persistent to try.
darn it.
And you think I want to be on TV to talk about a tit?
Eventually, they loosened up.
It's the first thing when you take a girl, you go to a movie or whatever. Your hands are all over, you know.
Men are attracted to them. Very much so.
You find out it's a lot more to life than just, you know, sexy breasts.
That's what fed my children. That's what makes me a woman.
Well, bring it up a little notch. Because these eyes can't see you, but these are skinny.
My mother put me in a bra when I was 12 years old.
Sure.
And it was like a little training bra.
Well, just be proud of where your body is. That's the whole thing to me. Because I'm very proud of mine, no matter how heavy I am. I love me.
Chuck must like them. He likes to fool around a lot, so.
She's an ex-school teacher. Don't do it right the first time, you have to do it over again. Did I say that?
But I have a question. What would you do? What would you do if when I go and have this tumor removed? What would you do if they told you I had to have a breast removal?
My first wife died at 42 years. What would I do? I'd still be there. Right? Quite right.
But I wouldn't be the same.
So? 80 years old, who's worrying about it? Right?
See, but this is a man's perspective. See, this I told you. See, this is a man's perspective. Now, this thing is going to happen within the next month. And my point is, I would feel less of a woman. And I am very frightened. Very frightened. But I have to face it and go through it. And there's a decision to be made. Now, will you be angry with me if it's cancerous and I tell them you're not allowed to remove the breast, remove the tumor, and then do whatever you need to do, but don't take off the breast? Will you be angry with me?
You're mine.
Thank you. Here is a man who thinks clearly. Who thinks clearly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I never thought I would be a cover girl. You know, it was not my ambition.
When this photo was taken in 1980, breast cancer was still a closeted disease. This image was radical. I remember seeing this picture in college, and I felt this huge sense of relief. Like there was life after breast cancer. That you might not just die from it. And I always wanted to meet the woman in the photo.
Once I had the idea that I should do a picture, I was like a woman possessed. And I could not find a photographer. You know, it's like you couldn't find anyone to look at your body and not be disturbed by it.
Dina Metzger is a writer and healer. She and her husband Michael live in the Los Angeles area. In 1976, Dina discovered she had breast cancer.
And then I remember the night before the surgery, I actually held the breast in my hand and sang to it. The breast that had nursed my children and that had been a source of pleasure and loving and comfort, that was gone. I knew somewhere that there would be a time when, or hoped, that I would be with a man who would touch my body and that his hand would either touch a flat surface or a fake breast.
Dina decided to have reconstruction.
A very strange thing happened. There was a freak storm, and all the electricity went out in the hospital. This is Cedars-Sinai, major Los Angeles hospital. This does not happen very often. And so when I woke up, I was still flat as a boy. So I yielded to fate. I was able to speak out about how it was really okay to have a mastectomy. It was really okay to be one-breasted. If I be honest, I say that I became a single woman and I had quite a few lovers I found men generous and loving. It really challenged all the stereotypes and everything that I expected. Well, I thought about it a long time. I wanted a tree for the tree of life. And that image meant that someone could look at my chest and not have to look away. It's no surprise that a woman would be struck down in that place where she is most woman. And perhaps, the words that come to me feel very strong, but I'm going to say the most despised.
You come home from the hospital and you've had knee surgery, and the first thing you do is lift up your pant leg and show somebody your scar. You've had an appendectomy, you pull down your waistband and you show somebody your scar. You've just come home from a mastectomy. Do you lift up your blouse and show somebody your scar? Less likely.
When leaders of the Breast Cancer Fund launched its Obsessed with Breast campaign, they planned to put hundreds of posters like this one in San Francisco area bus shelters. Only a fraction ever made it up.
The people who run the poster services, the billboards, just absolutely freak out. We drew more international media attention to that campaign than we could have if the posters had remained up. We wanted people to talk about it. We wanted people to debate it. And we created materials for them to use in the schools to discuss with children if it became an issue. It was not the kids who had a problem with it. It was the grown-ups. It was, and men had a tremendous problem with this campaign. It just shocked them. It made them close their eyes and just feel like, I don't want to look at that. That's not the way I want to see the human breast. Well, it's not the way we want to see it either. And it's not the way any woman who faces breast cancer wants to see it. And so our job is to really start with the reality of what this disease does to a woman. We wanted to take away that idea that if you've had a mastectomy, you lose everything. Yes, you've lost your breast, and that's a terrible and tragic loss, but you have not lost your core self.
The same year I lost my mother, First Lady Betty Ford bravely went public with her own breast cancer diagnosis. This was a time when you couldn't even say the word breast in polite company, let alone breast cancer, which conjured up a scary mix of death and sex and motherhood. But after years of whispering, women got fed up. They demanded more research and better treatment. Soon a powerful new movement was born. Corporate America wanted its share of the success, so it launched a new marketing strategy: Shop for the Cure.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month was initiated by industry. It wasn't initiated by advocacy groups. It wasn't initiated by breast cancer survivors. It was initiated by industry to call attention to products available to women, to market to women who are facing breast cancer, pink-wash their images. When the media takes the pink ribbon and takes the pink teddy bear and has it symbolize the whole issue, when those images replace the need for our outrage, when they're used to soften our message, that's when I have a problem. You're fighting this flood of images that are normalizing it, that are making it a congregation of people all together. Well, we're not all together on the issue. We are not all one about this. We have not had the will to look at what some of the causes of breast cancer are. We have not had the will to look at our environment, to look at the environmental exposures. So, yes, I think that it's too soft.
More Americans have died from breast cancer in the last 20 years than were killed in both World Wars, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War combined.
A friend of mine, a breast cancer survivor, said, I will know I survived breast cancer when I die of something else.
I think some attitudes about breast can be deadly. I mean, there are some cultures where women are taught not to touch their breasts at all. So that's one issue. It's just not okay to touch your breasts. And obviously that makes for problems in doing breast self-exam and trying to understand what your breast tissue feels like.
It feels like...
So let's say that...
You want to see it?
That's what we're finding out. That's the difference.
Can she do it? The breast. My children have had fun playing catch with it, using it as headgear, and I get a little bit nervous when they're playing catch, though, because I don't want it to break. This is an essential part of my going out and facing the public.
It was kind of scary and surprising because first you didn't know that was going to happen because you looked fine, and because there wasn't really any physical markings that she was having breast cancer.
To hear that you actually have cancer, the veneer is cracked, and you're vulnerable, and yet I'm a parent, And to be too vulnerable is a scary thing.
They did a lumpectomy first, then another lumpectomy. There they widened, and then ultimately she did end up losing the breast. But it's strange. After I realized we were out of the woods, so to speak, and I say that, how much in the woods am I? You know, that I wasn't. We went through it, but Evelyn was bearing the brunt of this. That's when it started hitting me more. It's almost like afterwards I'm realizing, good Lord, Dan, you're too stupid to even realize how close you came to losing your wife.
I felt like if anything would go wrong, then I would lose one of my favorite people. And I wouldn't know how to live on if my mom wasn't there anymore. And I found it hard to concentrate in school. My dad was the only one to be with.
You want to be there for your kids. You want to keep the engine running. You know, I'm still the breadwinner. I've got to be there to make the money. And and your wife's going through a hell of a time. I had no idea how big a breast is. And I don't mean that, you know, you don't realize how extensive a breast is, how far it wraps around, and how high it comes. It's a mastectomy. It's there no more.
Then you couldn't even touch her because she was hurting so much.
We were very lucky to have found this Cancer Lifeline support group, which we went to once a week. And the girls, it was actually designed for the girls.
And one day, Sophia said to me, with her little outstretched palms, "You know, you can't catch cancer." It was so sweet, and I knew that they were addressing questions that I hadn't even thought of. I think that I'm cancer-free. You never know for sure, of course, but I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, and I don't see any signs any longer. So I am a survivor.
Every 6 months, Evelyn goes in for a mammogram, and we hold our breath. I feel closer to Evelyn now, you know, without the breast. I find her more attractive, strangely. We're in a very breast-centric society, and I'm affected by all that. I mean, I'm your regular guy, you know, that's attractive. But there's something more attractive, and that is character, and still, physically. I mean, Evelyn she's gorgeous. I tell them they're beautiful, and they are beautiful. But how unimportant that physical beauty is. They'll hear enough of that in their life. So much more important what's in here, whether they're kind to people. I think it's given them, and particularly Ava, again, because she's a little bit older, a kind of a wisdom beyond her years about breasts.
A lot happened to her in the time, and a lot happened to me too. Inside of me, I changed. I appreciated my life more. I loved the people who I had more. When I was a kid, I didn't get to ask questions about breasts or cancer. The way I saw it, my mom just disappeared without saying goodbye. I was angry. I felt robbed. I blamed my dad. I blamed God. I blamed her. But those were different times. There were no support groups for families like mine. We were on our own. Attempts to save my mother's life left my dad with a staggering pile of medical bills. And for a single dad, even simple family outings could be a hassle. Nobody wants to see little girls changing into swimsuits in the men's room. I saw how it could be different, and somehow things got clearer in my mind. Even with all the crazy ideas our society has about breasts, being a woman, being a mother, didn't seem so bad. Maybe it was even kind of lovely. I started to feel myself standing a little straighter. What would it be like to be completely at home in one's body? To appreciate the shapes and even have a laugh about it all from time to time? The members of Seattle's Burly Cute Burlesque have given it some thought.
Burlesque is amazing because it embraces the full woman. In fact, it's kind of funny. It's a little bit biased against more slender women in some ways because there's so much emphasis on the shimmy, the shake, the bump and grind.
Oh, listen, having people cheer and clap for you. I mean, that feels great.
And it's a challenge for me too because I'm a curvier girl. I don't think you see a lot of naked, curvier, heavier women.
Yeah.
You have whole curves.
Blonde, black. And I think it's cool, even though I don't have the greatest body image of myself. When I go on stage and I do a show afterwards, women who are not perfect come up to me and always tell me how great it is that I'm up there.
No, I'm Shushu.
You're Shushu. Shushu Lehar.
I was also made fun of for being flat-chested and things, also being a beanpole and whatever terms people could come up with. And but when I got on stage, it was power.
Everybody else have their normal hair. I like the red. Do you brush this? Okay, I'll wear both.
You know, just always
I know that people like them, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. You know, it makes me feel pretty.
Really cute.
It tells a story about a woman having a sexuality and being able to express it, but on her own terms, and being able to say, well, look, this is what's sexy to me. What do you think about this? We think that our bodies are very serious things, and in fact, having some fun with it, seeing people having fun with their own bodies, seeing people's tremendous comfort and confidence in their own bodies, creates a much healthier and more positive environment for everyone. And I think that the culmination of a lot of burlesque acts is the exposing breasts, is twirling tassels, showing off the pasties. I mean, there you have it, this like exact spot on the body that's so alluring and so mysterious, and it's covered with sequins and this big tassel that people are spinning around in circles.
Nighttime superheroine. Pasty twirler. A wonderful woman indeed.
Now, I can make them do this thing I want to make them do. I can look this amazing way. I can be a star, my own body.
Good night.
And who wouldn't want to be a star in his or her own body? I'm not likely to don pasties anytime soon, but for now, the thing I have to remind myself is that nothing stays the same. Times change.
We forget that in the 19th century there was so much discomfort with the female leg that even piano legs were covered up, and very prudish people